Alright, let's see if this video finished uploading. No, still processing. Alright, before I start that, fair use. Fair use. You could read that all day long. Fair use. Alright. Now this person, they gave me a couple of quotes and they left me the sources of where to read the quotes. So I'm gonna go read these quotes and I'm gonna do some notes on them. Oh yes, before I start reading them, I'd like to cite the credit to Miss Mary Brown, who left me this information. I hope I get a lot out of it. Alright. I have my eSword open. Ezekiel. What number of Ezekiel? Ezekiel 1, 5 through 10. Oh, that's going to be hard to find. Ezekiel 1 through... Nope, it's 5 through 10. Ezekiel 5 through 10. Chapter 1. Alright, let me try to burn this up to again instead. The glory of the Lord. Alright, so this is Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 5. And in the midst, as it were, the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was upon their appearance. The likeness of a man was upon them. So I guess that means that they looked like a man, and each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. So each of these beings has 4 faces, probably one head with 4 faces on it, and it had 4 sets of wings, and the legs were straight, and their feet were winged, and there were sparks like gleaming brass, and their wings were light. Okay. So it looked like their wings were holograms, or like their wings were made of some kind of fire, and they probably had wings at the top of their backs, 2 wings at the top of their backs, or 2 wings with 2 wings at the bottom of their feet, or on the back of their legs, or they had all 4 wings at the bottom of their feet, and they had 4 arms, and it had four faces on its head. It has some kind of light or sparks coming off of it, like brass. What I do? Okay. Okay, that's what I did. All right. And each one had 4. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. The legs were straight. All right. I'm at verse 8. Ezekiel 1 verse 8. And the hand of a man was under their wings, on their 4 sides. What does that mean? And the hand of a man was under their wings, on their 4 sides. And the faces of them turned not when they went. They went every one straight forward. So I guess when they moved, they couldn't turn their heads left or right. They just went directly forward. And the likeness of their faces was the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right of the 4, and the face of the calf on the left, and the face of the eagle on the 4th. Oh, I read it wrong. And the likeness of their faces was the face of a man. That's probably in the front. the face of a lion on the right, which is to the fourth, and the face of the calf on the left to the fourth, and probably in the back of the head, the face of an eagle to the fourth. Alright, let me look that up. Alright, what is Google going to tell me? Okay, so all of this on this webpage stating that what the hands of a man is supposed to mean. So I'm going to skim a whole lot of this. So, and they had the hands of a man under their wings on their four sides. Hands of a man denote action according to knowledge. Ministries of the gospel are men of practice and business, and they have theory and knowledge of things. And they act like men in a rational way according to the will of God revealed in the word. And these beings on their four sides show that they have much work to do around on every side, ministering to the world. Nah, that doesn't sound right. Starting to break down there. And hands as hands of man were made of them were made for them under the were made for them under their wings on their four sides to take in them coals of fire from between the cherubim under the firmament which was over their seats, to put them in the hands of seraph, and to scatter them upon the place of the ungodly, to destroy the wicked that transgressed his word. And their faces and their wings were equal to them four. Okay. These being under the wings show that besides public ministrations, they do much work secretly and privately in their closet studies where no eye can see them but the eye of God, as well as in private houses. But their visitations and conversation and expense of their modesty and humility, not by doing what they seem to be of men, nor boasting of their works, but ascribing all to the grace of God, strength of Christ. All right, this is all the way back in Ezekiel, and they keep bringing it back to Christ. This is no fault of Mary Brown, but this is mine. Why is it Christians always trying to put Jesus Christ back in the Old Testament? He's not there. By which they perform them and by which they give them success. The Jews of the Talmud, after 13, interpret this hand of God, which is stretched out under the wings of living creatures, to receive pertinent persons, because it's written as it is written, his hand, but read hands. The four faces. Okay, so I think that what they're talking about is that these angels has not only specific tasks but special powers relating to their task. And that by saying they had hands, it means that they worked in the background and they worked in the background invisibly and in the foreground visibly. So I wonder what that was about. Alright. Try Desert of Seth. See also Ezekiel 1 verse 5 through 10. As without, so within. I picked the wrong spot in Ezekiel. Try the desert of Seth, Middle East, Arabia, Islam, the olive branch that Semiramis the dove brought to Noah's Ark after the flood. The olive branch represents the descendants of Ishmael, Arabs. Diligence on all said will reveal itself. The false prophet Muhammad, a pure Aryan Ottoman Turk. If the Quran in English says armpits, arms, thighs, face, feet were white, that means his body was white. Sea Village campaign in County Illinois, United States. It refers to Muhammad Sheikh Din Muhammad. Muhammad Sheikh Din Mohammed, a Bengali traveler in the 11th century named Muhammad Wainomon, a Native American tribal chieftain. Alright, so let me go over here. Who is Semiramis? Oh, wait. First, Desert of Seth. Alright, that video should finish uploading. Okay, good, it's done. Alright. Alright, that's the second video, Genesis 2 notes, extended. Alright, there's Desert of Seth. I'm gonna look that up in a moment. Let's try Semiramis next. We'll search on that. Alright, so that's Muhammad Sheikh Din Muhammad next. Alright, so this looks like a book. 10 Lost Cities in the Indian Ocean. And what was the last one? Try reading this. Wait, where am I reading from? This reading and this video speaks about 4 living creatures. Alright. Alright, so I think that this 10 Lost Cities in Indian Oceans is a video.
Zircons that were at least 3 billion years old. The rocks on the continent were much older than those found in the oceans, meaning the minerals could only have.
No, this is mysterious lost continent. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for lost cities in the Indian Ocean. Alright, let me try to narrow this. Alright. It's talking about Lemuria. I think that's about the Jarwa. You know, it's funny that I can recognize their silhouette. Those are the Adamanese. So this is probably what Adam looked like. Alright. Nope. No. All these seem to be going back to Atlantic City every time you talk about a lost city in an ocean. Okay. Alright. So who was Muhammad Sheikh Din Muhammad? Sheikh Din Muhammad was a Bengali Anglican Indian traveler, surgeon, entrepreneur who was one of the most notable early non-European immigrants to the Western world. Alright. Olive branch of Ceramis. So there's Olive Branch, Mississippi. Okay, so this link has in Ceramicis, Olive Branch, and Ceramicis. This has something to do with Freemasonry. I'm gonna click that. And that is about Ceramicis. Seth or Set is a desert god of storms, disorder, violence, foreigners in ancient Egypt, and foreigners in ancient Egyptian religion. Okay, in the Desert of Seth by G.B. Marion. Alright, that looks like what she was talking about. Alright, back to the fair use. Okay. Alright, so this is Sheikh Din Muhammad. Sheikh Din Muhammad was a Bengali Anglican traveler, surgeon, entrepreneur, and notable non-European immigrant to the Western world. He introduced South Asian cuisine, and shampoo baths to Europe, where he offered therapeutic massage. He was one of the first Indian to publish a book in English. So this is his early life. Born in 1759 in Patina, Bihar, then part of the Bengali presidency. Sheikh Din Muhammad came from Buxar. His father belonged to the traditional Nai Barber caste, was in the employment of the East India Company. He learned much of the Mughal alchemy and understood the techniques used to produce various alikai soaps and shampoo. Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and cities of Al-Abadad and Delhi in rich detail, and also made notes of categories of the Mughal Empire. Okay, so when it means Western world, it means Western as in the Middle East is considered the center of the world, and then after the Middle East, you got the East, which is considered China, then Europe is considered the West. That time, I guess they didn't know about America, because then they would call America the West. Okay, so this guy Sheikh Din Muhammad seems to be the guy who brought culture to Europe, or at least got rid of their stinky BO problem, and gave them decent freshener and shampoo when they bathe, so they didn't smell stink after they had a bath. Seems like he was also known as being a bit of an expert on Indian culture, the cities. And it seems like he also knew something about Genghis Khan. So these guys seem interesting. Alright. So the olive branch that Semiramis. Alright, so let me go over here. Who is Semiramis? Semiramis, also in Greek, which I really not going to be able to pronounce, was the legendary wife of King Nimrod, and Ninus later on succeeded him to the throne of Assyria. Legends narrated by Durotus, Cecilius Justin, and others from Sinatus of Sindus describe her as a relationship to the kings Ninus and Nimrod, both mystical kings of Assyria, not attested in the far older and more comprehensive Assyrian king list. So are they saying that she didn't exist? Seems like a lot of fuss for someone who didn't exist when in fact she did. So they're depicting Semiramis as an armed Amazon. The real and historical Shamu Ramat, the original Akkadian and Aramaic form of the name, was the Assyrian wife of Shamshi Adad the Fifth, who ruled from 1824 BC to 1811 BC, king of Assyria and ruler of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. So Sham so Shamuramat is supposed to be the original Semiramis. So let me open that in another tab. Let me open her husband name in another tab. And she is a king, not husband. The indigenous Assyrians of Iraq and northeast Syria, southeast Turkey, northwest Iran still use Semiramis. Also, Sharam as a given name for their female children. So people still name their children today after Semiramis. The name Semiramis came to be applied to various monuments in Western Asia and Asia Minor. Okay, seems like something interesting is here. Herodotus ascribes to her artificial banks that confined the Euphrates, knows her name as born by a gate of Babylon. So there was an artificial flood system that's named after her that held back the water, the Euphrates, and there was like a city gate named after her in Babylon. Okay, so there's a legend about her and as a historical figure. So, so basically, this whole Assyrian Empire controlled. Oh, that's the complete Middle East. Practically the whole. That's practically the entire Middle East. Well, achievements of Semiramis are clearly in the realm of mystical Persian, Armenian, and Greek historiography. The historical Assyrian queen Semiramis, wife of Shamash Akkad V, and not the fictional Ninus or semi-mythical Nimrod of Assyria, certainly existed. After her husband's death, she served as regent from 1811 to 1806 BC for her son, Adad Nirari. Boy, my pronunciation must sound so bad. Okay, Shimmerat would have been briefly in control of the vast Neo-Assyrian Empire, which stretched from the Caucasus Mountains to the north of the Arabian Peninsula in the south, and western Iran to East Corpus in the west. Georges Redux speculated that later on, the Greek and Neo-Iranian Persian Median flavored myths surrounding Semiramis stem from successful campaigns she waged against these people, and the novelty of a woman ruling such an empire. Okay, so Semiramis is important because this was the name given to Shimmerat to hide her true victories in battles. You want to track the name back to the original person, and want to track the original wars back to the original people. Alright, let's go over to the Armenian legend. Alright, so the Armenian tradition portrays her as a homewrecker and a harlot. So basically, she's considered a whore, and she's an adulteress, and she went into a family's home, and she pushed out the wife to become the new wife. These facts are partly explained by observing that, according to the legends, her birth as well as her appearance from Earth, Semiramis appears as a goddess and daughter of the fish goddess Agartis. Images of Agartis. What does Agartis look like? Oh, is Alright, I can't find it right now. But I'm looking for owns. Oh, I know to find owns. Owns is always attached to the adapter. Owens. Images. Cut that out. Alright, so we got Owens. This took me longer than I thought because I knew I was. I knew I saw. I knew I thought. I knew I recognized this fish person with top body human and body part fish, or fish with human legs, and it's really Owens, some kind of fish slash human hybrid. So I guess that's where all these originally looking Ethiopian people from from Assyria started to get peeled out. One of the most popular legends of the Armenian tradition involves Semiramis and her Armenian king, Ara the Beautiful. Okay, according to legend, Semiramis had heard about the fame of the handsome Armenian king Ara. She lusted after his image, so I guess his image is what he looked like. Semiramis was enamored with Ara's vigorous power and so sought to consummate with him. So she didn't just want him for what he looked like, she wanted for what he could do for her. So she wanted to use him. So she wanted to use sex to control him. She asked Ara to marry her, but he refused. Upon hearing this, she gathered the armies of Assyria and marched against Armenia. Wait, so if her armies could beat his armies, then why did she need his power? During the battle, Ara was slain by Semiramis. To avoid continuous warfare, the Armenians, Semiramis, the arm with the Armenian to avoid continuous battle with the Armenians, Semiramis, reputed to be a sorceress, took his body and prayed to the goddess to raise Ara from the dead. When the Armenians advanced to avenge their leader, she disguised one of her lovers as Ara and spread the rumors that that the gods had brought Ara back to life, ending the war. Although many different versions of the legend exist, they agree that Ara never came back to life. So although she wasn't a witch, she pulled a switcheroo on them. She cuckolded them. She put a fake ruler to rule over them. Alright, so let's go to Simirat. So it has families, monuments, Semiramis. So Simirat's Stela memorial stone has been found in Assur, while the inscription at Nimrod indicates that she was dominant there after the death of her husband before the rule of her son. Alright. Now, if I was going to really dig deep into this, I'd probably go back to look through all the wars in Assyria to see where Simirat fights a war. It's almost like they don't want to fess up that they conquered all these people, which is odd. Because usually when one nation conquers another nation, they shout it from the rooftop. They shout it from the rooftops. They have parties. You know, they make a fan for all of it. All right. So this guy barely ruled for what 10 years, and he was named after the god Adad, known as Hadad. Um, Shamash Adad the fifth was a son and successor of King Shalmaneser the third and husband of Queen Shimmerat, and father of Adad Narai the third, who succeeded him as king. He was also grandfather of Shalmaneser the fourth. Boy, there's a whole lot of Shalmanesers here. Alright, so Wikipedia doesn't seem like it has a lot of stuff on him, although these links seem interesting. Let me see if Semiramis has any links. Or Shimmerat. Alright, so Shimmerat, Queen of Assyria. Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Alright, so there's like a little bit here on Shimmerat. Shimmerat was the mother of Adad, Narai the third. Alright, so I read that about her stela. It was found at Assur. Okay, so after the death of her husband, it seems like after the death of her husband, she was in control of the empire. Okay, so I think this is where we get the story about her attacking another empire. So she found another king called Ninus, King Ninus. She seduced him, and then he died very soon after. Maybe she killed him, and then she assumed control over both his kingdom and his armies, and reigned over both the kingdoms for another 10 to 5 years until her son could assume the throne. Oh, come on. It's not fair. Link is dead. Oh, Samurat. No, Samuramat. And Semiramis is the inspiration and the myth. Alright, this is a fairly long article, and it seems to explain things very extensively. So I'm gonna read this on my own later, but let me see if I can read the first paragraph. Alright, so this is talking about her reign from 1811 to 1806 BCE. The queen regent of the Assyrian Empire, who held the throne for her younger son, Adad Narai the third. She's also known as alternate name, Samurai, Samur, Shamuramat, and Samuramat, most notably as Semiramis. The last designation, Semiramis, has been the source of considerable controversy for over a century now. Scholars and historians argue that over whether Semirat was the inspiration for the myths concerning Semiramis. Whether Samurat ever ruled Assyria and whether Semiramis ever existed as an actual historical personage, the debate has been going on for some time and is not likely to conclude one way or the other in the near future, but still it is possible to suggest the likely possibility possibility of the legend of Semiramis were in fact inspired by the reign of Queen Samurat and have their basis, if not in her actual deeds, at least the impression that she made on the people of her time. Alright, so this is talking about her connections to the people within the Assyrian Empire, husband of Shamash Adad V. Alright, according to historian Gwendolyn Lelik, this woman achieved remarkable fame and power in her lifetime and beyond. According to contemporary records, she had considerable influence at the Assyrian court. This would explain how she was able to maintain the throne after her husband's death. Women were not admitted into positions of authority in the Assyrian Empire, and to have a woman ruler would have been unthinkable unless that particular woman had enough power to achieve it. Okay, so this seems pretty large and clear here. So her reign was so impressive that they made a bigger legend around how great she actually ruled. Okay, she would then be remembered by the Greeks, Assyrians, and Armenians and others as a semi-divine being who was born of the gods and raised by doves. The primary source for these tales concerning Semiramis comes from Greek historian Doratus Cecilius, 1930 to 30 BCE, who cited an early work from Ctesias, 400 BC. So this is like 4 to 300 years removed from when Semiramis was ruling around 800 BC, which is now lost. So the original work that this guy wrote in 400 BC is nowhere to be found. But everyone believes it's real because this guy wrote about this guy's work. Dorotus Cecilius wrote about some work by Ctesias in 400 BC, but Ctesias' work isn't there anymore. Also, she's referenced by Herodotus, Strabo, and many other legends concerning her have been preserved by other writers, such as Paulinus, Plutarch, Justinus, Eusebius, among others. A famous passage from Plutarch relates, Semiramis built a monument for herself with the inscription, whatever king wants treasure, if he opens this tomb, he may be satisfied. Darius therefore opening it found no treasure, but another inscription of import. If you were not a wicked person and of insatiable covetousness, you would not disturb the mansions of the dead. So it seems like Semiramis is like to play tricks on people, because she made her own monument to her own fame. Alright, alright. But that Darius fellow, he went and looted people's. That Darius fellow went and looted people's tombs. Alright. Eusebius refers to the Babylonian writer Berosus, 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 complaining that Greeks attributed to Semiramis great building projects she had no hand in. So I don't know who this Isus, where this Isus was, Eusebius. I don't know where this Eusebius Us, Usebus or Isebus, well, Isebus is talks about Babylonians, is citing Babylonians, and he's saying that the Greeks are exaggerating the greatness of Semiramis and what she did. So she's saying that. So the Greeks are saying she built stuff, a whole lot of buildings and monuments, and Eusebius is saying she didn't build anything. That was other people in the empire. While Polyaenus references inscriptions of her testifying to her exploit and the construction of impregnable walls of her cities. So like a king doesn't go around building the structures, but he still gets credit for it. So while she was queen, anything that was done and built would have been accredited to her. All right. So even before the time in which Dorotus wrote, Semiramis was associated with Ishtar, Inanna, Astarte, and the deity in general. She was revered by Assyrians and reviled by Armenians, possibly because of a successful military campaign she led against them, but was generally held in high regard until the coming of Christianity, when she, like Ishtar, Aphrodite, Astarte, and other ancient gods, fell out of favor with the new faith. She was made famous in the 19th century CE book by the anti-Catholic propaganda, The Two Babylons, by a Christian minister, Alexander Hyssop, who linked her to the Whore of Babylon. Oh, so they're talking about the Whore of Babylon in the book of Revelation 17, although she's never mentioned by name in Revelation, and no possible variations of her name is mentioned at all in the Bible negatively. While all of the above may be true, the identification of Samarat with Semiramis has been repeatedly challenged since the 19th century. So the problem that all these historians have is that they keep giving Shamarat alternate names. When these Assyrians was out conquering empires, these later historians came along and gave them different names, and now you think they're all these different empires conquering all these different countries, when it's just a few empires conquering a few countries, and these historians are giving them different names. So now the historians are confused, are divided on whether Samarat ever ruled Assyria, whether her reign gave birth to the Semiramis figure, and whether she accomplished anything at all. Because of this, whether she actually accomplished anything at all, because of this and her identification with the biblical narrative in Revelation, she remains one of the more controversial figures from ancient history. So this whole Babylon stuff seems important. Alright, so this is a historical reign of Shimmerat from the website www.ancienteu article 743. So they're telling you the genealogy here of Simmerat's first husband, Shamash Adad V. He is the son of King Shalmaneser III, grandson of Ashur Nishirapal II. Now, in the Bible, they give these people completely different names, which is why there is trouble finding them. Alright. Okay. So something important that happened in Shamash Adad V. During his reign, there was a revolt in 826 BCE, which launched a revolt against Shalmaneser III, and this was done by Shalmaneser III's elder son, Ashur-din-pal. Ashur-danin-pal apparently grew tired of waiting to get his shot on the throne, so he tried to kill his dad. Now, Adad the fifth, Shamash Adad the fifth. So Shamash Adad must have been the fifth son in line to the throne. So something probably happened to the first and the second, and to the fourth sons. They probably got killed off by the third and the fifth sons, which would have been Ashur, Dan, which would have been Ashur, Dan Pal, and Shemashi Adad the fifth. Probably killed off their brothers during the rebellion. It took about 6 years for the rebellion to be accomplished, but by the time Adad Palin was defeated, much of the resources that Shamash would have claimed as spoils were already used up, and the Assyrian Empire was weakened. So that means that the Assyrian Empire didn't have no food or weapons to give to its people, so they know how to go and conquer other peoples. So that's an excuse for them to go to war again. It is at this time that Shimmerat appears in the historical record. It is not known what year she married the king, but when her husband died, she took the throne. She was able to provide her nation with the stability it needed. Alright. Historians speculate that since ancient times seemed so uncertain, the people of Assyria seems so uncertain to the people of Syria, the successful reign of a woman would have engendered a kind of awe greater than that of a king, so unprecedented. She was powerful enough to have her own obelisk inscribed and placed in the city of Ashur. It read, the still of Shimmerat, queen of Shamash Adad, king of the universe, king of Assyria, mother of Adad Narai, king of the universe, king of Assyria, daughter-in-law of Shalmaneser, king of the four regions of the world. Wow, these guys thought they ruled the entire universe. What exactly, what exactly Shimrat did during her reign is unknown, but it seems she initiated a number of building projects and may have personally led military campaigns. Okay, so there, so a lot of these male historians are saying, well, we don't think she really did anything, but she couldn't have reigned long, or she wouldn't have reigned at all if she didn't provide if she did not provide some stability after the Assyrian Civil War, when she takes over the throne after her husband's death. Because according to the historians, Assyrian women didn't have the rights to rule or have any rights at all. So unless she wasn't doing a good job, she wouldn't have been queen for a minute. That was told her, "We're deposing you. We're gonna put another male on the throne. We'll put some other man or general as regent for your son, but you will not rule." So she had to be doing a very good job as a ruler, conquering other peoples, murdering other peoples, stealing all their wealth and food, and giving it to the Assyrian Empire. So according to historian Stephen Bertman, prior to Shamashi Adad's death, Shimrat took the extraordinary step of accompanying her husband on at least one military campaign, and she's prominently mentioned in royal inscriptions. After his death, she seems to have continued to lead campaigns herself, although this, like much else in her reign, has been questioned. Whatever she did, it stabilized the empire after the Civil War and provided her son with a sizable, secure nation when he came to the throne. Look, most of the time, even if the king doesn't go to war and he just sends his generals out to war, he still gets the credit for the victory. So she sent generals out to war and they defeat all the enemies and double the size of the empire. She will still get the credit. So I don't get why they have a big problem giving her credit. All right, all right. It is known that she defeated the Medes and annexed their territory and may have conquered the Armenians. Oh, she probably did conquer the Armenians, or rather, she put a puppet ruler to control their kingdom for a time. And she probably conquered the entire Medes territory. The Medes. The Medes were the ancient Iranian people who lived in the area known as Media and who spoke the Median language. Okay, so she conquered the Iranians. She took over this shit. She took over all their territory. According to Herodotus, she may have conquered the Armenians, but no, she conquered the Armenians, and she put a fake ruler to control them, and may have built embankments at the Babylon on the Euphrates River, which is still famous in this time. What else did she? What else she did, however, merged with myth in the recent years after her reign. The historian Samwise Boer comments on this writing. No, the historian Susan Wise Bauer, Bauer, oh, is that Bauer? Comments on this writing. The Bab- the Babylonian princess Semiramis stepped into the place of power. A woman on the Assyrian throne. It had never been done before. She built for us. She built the stele she built for us. The stele she built for herself is at some pains to link to her everyday of is is at some pains to link her to every available Assyrian king. She's called not only the queen of Shamash Adad, the mother of Adad Nerai, but also the daughter-in-law of Shalmaneser. Well, that be given. How can you not be married to a king and not be the daughter-in-law? Um, Shamrat holds power. Shamrat's hold on power was so striking that it echoed in the distant historical memory of a people just arriving on the scene. The Greeks remember her, giving her the Greek name Semiramis. No, I think the Greeks wanted to rewrite history after they got conquered by another people who stole their name and identity, and they were trying to rewrite all of history to support their reign in Greece. The Greek historian Ctesias says that she's the daughter of a fish goddess, Risbadels, who married the king of Assyria and gave birth to a son called Ninnius. Alright, so that's a different name for that's different than the name of Adad Nerai, or is Adad Nerai a special title, while Ninnius is his actual birth name. When her husband died, Semiramis treacherously claimed his throne. So here's what I'm thinking. Semiramis wasn't just Semiramis. Semiramis was an entire family, and they backed their daughter to the throne, and they killed off anyone who got in their way. This ancient story preserves the echo of Adad's Nerai's name in Ninyas, the son of the legendary queen. It is not the only story to hint that Shimmerat seized power in a manner not exactly above board. Another Greek historian, Dorotas, tells us Semiramis convinced her husband to give her power for just 5 days to see how well she could manage it, and when he agreed, she had him executed and seized the crown for good. All right. So that's how she did it. So that's how the first king died. Her military campaigns and building projects, as well as her administration of government, made such an impression on the people at the time that she grew in stature to become larger than life. Ancient historian Strabo wrote, "The works of Semiramis are pointed out through almost the whole continent, earthworks bearing her name, walls and strongholds, aqueducts, stair-like roads over mountains, canals, roads, and bridges." Herodotus comments concerning her have the same tone, and the reddest horse claimed she was divine. Alright, so the Greeks are heaping all this fame on her because they're trying to trace their lineage back to her. All this is documented by the ancients. Even though modern historians claim she may not have done anything at all, she may not have existed, or that Samarat had nothing to do with the mystical Semiramis. The historian Wolfram von Schulden writes that of the of that Samarat, the Semiramis of Greek literature, was temporary region after 810 BC, cannot, however, be proven. So other historians are saying that the real Samarat was at least at least another 30, 20 years in the past. Von Snowden is not alone in this opinion, but other historians such as Bauer are just as adamant in their claims for the opposite. It seems clear, however, owing to the similarities and identifications in the ancient stories between an Assyrian queen who conquered Medes and Armenians and Semiramis as an Assyrian warrior queen, that the Semiramis myth grew from the accomplishments of the actual historical woman, and that the woman was Samurat. Alright, I think Samurat really did conquer all these peoples. Oh wow, I'm at an hour. I'm reading way too slow. Okay, so this is the mythical reign of Semiramis, exactly what it was waiting for, and it's a whole lot of stuff. Okay, according to these two Greek scholars, according to Dorotus, Semiramis was conceived when Aphrodite became angered at the fish goddess the Derceto of the city of Ascalon in Assyria. So Ascalon is an Assyrian city. I keep hearing it in video games, and inspired her a violent passion for a certain handsome youth among her votaries. So Aphrodite wanted one of Desirto's men, and Desirto gave herself to the Syrian and bore her a granddaughter. Okay, so what was Aphrodite angry about? So was Aphrodite angry that Desirto um you that Desirto had a child with an Assyrian prince, but then, filled with shame for her deceitful deed, killed the youth and exposed the child in a rocky desert. While as for herself, from shame and grief, she threw herself into the lake and was changed as to the form of the body into a fish. The child would have died, but a flock of doves came to her aid and fed her milk from their beaks, which they took from nearby settlements, and there they also fed her cheese. They kept the baby warm by wrapping themselves around her. The farmers, noticing the loss of their cheese and milk, eventually went for the cause and found the 1 year old by the lake surrounded by doves. She was taken home by a farmer named Simus, who called her Semiramis, which according to Dorotus means doves. Okay, so so the Sirtul is a fish goddess, most probably one of Owain's children, and Aphrodite was pissed off that Dirceto was trying to marry into one of her devotees on the Assyrian Empire. So so after Aphrodite did is that she took the child and put the child in the desert where it could probably die, and Aphrodite probably killed Desierto instead, like Desierto falling over in grief because she was sad her child was killed. I think that's what really happened. And then in the story they said that birds were feeding her, and that a farmer found her. Alright, she grew up into a beautiful woman, widely known for her intelligence and grace. Her parents one day, the governor of Syria, a man named Ons. Wait. Alright. So when I type in Ons, I'm getting this dude. But if I put an A, I get Stargate. I get Owens, the fish dude. Look, this is probably what Owens probably look like. This is probably what the Owens people look like from Stargate. Boy, to think someone would want to kiss that or have children with that dude, or especially melanated person. It had to be some sort of mind control or illusions. Yeah, this looks like mind control here. So you just take off the A and it becomes Ons. Syrian governor. Alright, so I didn't find anything else. Okay, so this is Ons. No, I think Ons probably from the child from the Sirto, the fish goddess, and saved his half human, half fish grandchild. Ons visited the farm and saw her and fell in love with her. He asked Semais for her hand in marriage, and it was granted. Doris for and since the other qualities of Semiramis were keeping with the beauty of her countenance, it turned out that her husband became completely enslaved by her. And since he would do nothing without her advice, he prospered in everything. On advice's career and position at court, taking advice his wife until he was among the king's most trusted counselors. At this point, King Ninus initiated a military campaign against Bactrina, and took every city by storm except the one he wanted most, Bactara. He laid siege to the city, but the defenses were so strong that he could not prevail against it. After the siege had gone on for some time, Owens brought to counsel with Semiramis on the problem and see if she could find a solution. Dorus writes, but when the siege was providing a long affair, the husband of Semiramis, who was enamored with his wife, was making the campaign with the king, sent for a woman, and she was endowed, as she was understanding, daring, all the qualities contributed to the distinction, and seized the opportunity to display her native ability. First of all, since she was about to set upon a journey of many days, she devised a garb and made it impossible to distinguish whether the wearer was a man or a woman. So this is cross-dressing and a bit of deception. The dress was well adapted to her needs and in regard to both for traveling in heat and for protecting the color of her skin, and her convenience in doing whatever she might wish to do. Since it was quite palatable and suitable to a young person, and in a word, was so attractive that later times the Medes, who were then dominant in Syria, always wore the garb of Semiramis. Garb of Semiramis. Alright, images. Okay, so you in the hot heat and you can cover up your whole body. In the Middle East, where everybody's brown, but you can cover your whole body like this. As Semiramis did the Persians, and as did the Persians after him. The now when Semiramis arrived in Bactriana and observed the progress of the siege, she noted that it was on the plains and at positions which were easily assailed that attacks were being made, but no one ever assaulted the Acropolis because of its strong position, and that its defenders had left their posts, and there was no coming to aid of those who were hard pressed on the walls below. Consequently, taking with her such soldiers as were accustomed to climbing up rocky heights. Acropolis. What is an acropolis? Okay, I had the wrong idea in my head what Acropolis was. So an Acropolis is a citadel, and it's built on the high side of a hill, on a high extremely or extremely sharp edge of a cliff, and it's translated as high city. So it's more like a fortress that you put at the edge of a cliff. Acropolis definition. Acropolis, a citadel or a fortified part of an ancient Greek city, typically built on a hill. Okay, so they basically climbed up a sheer cliff and attacked the defenders from their blind spot. Consequently, taking with her soldiers that were accustomed to climbing up rocky heights, making her way up with them through a certain difficult ravine, she seized part of the Acropolis and gave a signal to those who were besieging the wall of the plain. Thereupon, defenders of the city, struck with terror at the seizure of the height, left the walls and abandoned all hope of. Whoa, 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 whoa! That don't make sense. Okay, so there were enough defenders at the bottom of this wall, and they couldn't retreat back up the wall, back up the sheer cliff into the citadel. So they left that part of the city undefended. So they left that part of the city undefended when Semiramis came with her men to go up the wall. The city fell to Ninus, and he asked Ons how it had been accomplished. When Ons introduced Semiramis to the king, he was amazed by her abilities and presented her. And Ons with many gifts and honors. Soon, however, he fell in love with her. As Doridius states, Ninus tried to persuade her husband to yield her to him of his own accord, offering in return for his favor to give him his own daughter, Sosane, to wife. So Sosane must not have been his first daughter. Well, since daughters weren't as important, he could make any daughter the queen. So giving him Sosane wasn't as important. But when the man took the offer with ill grace, Nis threatened to put his eyes out unless he at once acceded to his commands. And Owens, partly out of fear to the king's threats and partly out of his passion to the wife, fell into a kind of frenzy and madness and put a rope around his neck and hung himself. No, 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 no. I've seen way too many times when the guy in prison who's just a lackey, hangs himself. Oh, he was transporting. He was just a lackey, a henchman, but he was transporting $1 million in drugs, so he had to have a boss. And before he could talk to the police, he hung himself. Or it was a Wall Street banker, and the FCC came into his office and told him, "Look, we're gonna be back to arrest you tomorrow. Don't go anywhere." They come back 5 minutes later. He's hung himself. This is the same. This is the same. This is the same. This is like the same situation. King threatens. Supposedly the king threatened. No, the king didn't threaten. The king probably hung him. Just probably put a rope around his neck in the room, hung him, left the room. He came out and said, "Oh, he's dead." Such then there were circumstances whereby Semiramis attained the position of queen. No, I think it was Semiramis who hung him. Once she became queen, she steadily acquired greater power through military conquest and building projects. Alright, I think Simirat or someone didn't want anyone to know that Simirat was such a badass, or that Simirat could just kill people like that. So she hid all the stuff she did. That's like, this is the stuff you want someone to know when you're using cunning and guile. You don't want it to know your cunning and guile. That you have cunning and guile. So I think that Simirat separated her myth from Semiramis, or someone else did. So Simirat buried his body beneath a great mound on the Euphrates River. A tomb that Doretus claims could still be seen this day. She then founded the city of Babylon and built 2 enormous palaces connected by an underground tunnel. So wait, so did she build a castle on top of her husband's grave? That is cruel. And embankments to hold back the river from flooding the city, and then proceeded on from there to military campaigns. It has been noted by many historians that Diodorus' account of her campaign against India has many similarities to those of Alexander the Great. Now, the map of Alexander the Great conquering Asia is untrue. Alexander the Great probably only conquered like a small area. I think the Greeks then claimed like, oh, we conquered all of India and Asia. I don't think that's what happened. Or maybe it did happen. I have to do more reading. Or did the Greeks just make a fake history, which I don't think would happen. And her conquest of the Medes likewise. Not wanting to be dominated by another man, she took a series of lovers from the most handsome men in her army. She would sleep with them and have them executed the next morning. Okay, so here's what Semiramis did. The Assyrian, or the Neo or in the Neo-Assyrian Empire, is the man who has all the rights. So as soon as she has one man to do her dirty work and be a part of her scheme, so before he can blackmail her or take control of everything, she gets a new lover and kills him in a few days. Other accounts have her burying men alive the next day. In all her military excursions, she showed herself brilliantly resourceful, such as creating fake elephants for her India campaign, and as ruthless as any Assyrian king. By the end of her reign, she ruled all of Anatolia, Mesopotamia, Central Asia. She died at the age of 62, having ruled for 42 years, and turned into a dove and flew up into the heavens. No, 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 no. She is half fish, half human. How does she have the bird DNA to turn into a bird? If anything, she would have turned into a fish like her mom and gone back into the ocean. Another account, which is alluded to Doretus, is that upon her death, the doves had helped her in her youth and carried her off to heaven. Alright. So that last part just sounds like bull, even to me. So I think that what these Assyrians did is that they probably did conquer their way into Asia. And since history repeats itself, one could predict that they might try to conquer their way back into Asia again today. Whether one believes Whether one believes the mythical Semiramis had anything to do with the reign of Shimmerat depends entirely on which historian and which primary sources one chooses to accept. So there are two sources. One is Greek, one is Assyrian. The Greeks say that Semiramis was conquering all this stuff, and from what people can tell, the Assyrian account, she only conquered a little bit of stuff and ruled for a short time. The writers of closer accounts of story by telling that such then are the conflicting accounts which may be found by historians according to the curve Semiramis. The same statement could be made today regarding modern historians. Sir Henry Rawson, regarding the father of Assyrian astrology, like Egyptology, began to work to decipher the Behistun inscription in 1835 CE. This inscription on a high cliff had been mentioned by ancient historians such as Cetius, Doritus, primary source for the Semiramis story, as having been decreed by Semiramis of Babylonia. It was actually decreed later by Darius the Great in 1522 BC. Okay, I should just came down here first. Rawson, it seems, is the first modern historian to connect Semiramis with Shamurat in trying to find some historical Assyrian queen upon whom the legendary Semiramis was based. He did so by linking Cetius' claim that regarding the Behistun inscription was an actual historical person and went there to the inscriptions in Assyrian annals of the Queen Regent. Okay, this is my biggest problem with history. On one hand, you have people who read the Greek version of history and Greek myths and assume that all your ancient ancestors talked about fake stories and took their time to chisel into stone fake stories. When in fact, I don't think that's what anyone's ancient ancestors would have done. Like, we're gonna chisel a fake story about ourselves. I think that most of the time what went on is that there were enough people chiseling out the real truth that it's hard to hide it when you read multiple histories. Now, I think that Semiramis was out conquering the world. Now that would mean that there is a human versus human element, and then there's a non-human element. Like as Semiramis said, she was carried off into the heavens by doves, and that she came from a half woman, half fish. The historians, after all, have argued for and against this claim, mainly citing precisely the same ancient sources for their argument. Complicating the component and controversy comes from the passages in the Bible, which to some link Semiramis with biblical narratives. Okay, so historians are ignoring the fact that Rawlinson translated the stone. So historians are arguing that his translating the stone doesn't matter. And so they cite the Bible. And the Bible is basically using citations from the Greeks. Because again, who is the Catholics and the Greeks who produced this current version of the Bible. So it has been noted that Shemiroff appears in the Bible in Chronicles 1:15-18. Chronicles 1, chapter 15, verse 18. Chronicles 1, chapter 15. Prentice to a gate. Oh, here it is. Shemiroff. Or no. Shemiramoth. Or Semiramoth. It could go either way. But there it is. Okay. While in Chronicles 2 appeared to a teacher of law. In Chronicles 1, the name applies to a temple musician, while in 2, to a teacher of law. This suggests to some historians that a Semitic deity by the name of. Alright, Semitic deity. What they mean by Semitic deity is they mean a Syrian deity worshipped by the Canaanites. Like a lot of this stuff in the Bible is going back to the Canaanites. The Canaanites who was kicked out of the tribe by Noah are now servants. Because technically Canaan is accused of raping Noah, or he did something to Noah that was so bad that Noah kicked him out of the tribe and cut off his inheritance and also cursed him to having pale skin. Which is the whole root of the quote unquote Hamitic curse. Okay. So the Semitic deity by the name of Shiram to the version of Astarte was venerated in the region of Ascalon in Assyria, a site known for the veneration of Astarte, down to Levant to Israel and across Armenia and Persia. And this goddess is then referred in the Bible, in the name of the Bible, as Shemiroth, and will be translated according to theory as images of Shemiram, as things of Shiram, and certainly music and law, as mentioned above, were thought to have been given to humanity as gift from the gods. Semiramis therefore would be Astarte. The individuals mentioned in the Bible would be linked to her. I think I get this now. Alright. You want to remember a king who conquered most of the world. So what you would do is that you would move the king's legends, accolades, and victories in war over to the god. And then you would make the king seem slightly mediocre. So on one hand, you could hide what your king did, but still remember it by saying it was the god who did it. The theory does not explain, however, why pagan gods referred to so neutrally in the Bible when every other allusion to such deities is negative. So usually the Bible does not talk kindly of any other deity, which it should. It's a monotheistic God. Now, why would they talk so nicely of it? Because one, this Bible is being written by the Greeks, and the Greeks are trying to trace their lineage back through the Assyrians, not through they're trying to trace their language through the Assyrians and the Canaanites. So the Greeks are trying to trace their language through the Assyrians and the Canaanites. So they're going to talk nicely about them in the Bible. Neither, neither does it explain why Shimmeroth in the passage cited alludes to a Levite who have had nothing to do with a Mesopotamian goddess. It also fails to account for the possibility that the Greek Semiramis had nothing whatsoever to do with the Shimmeroth in the Bible. So all of these different gods are really talking about the same person who won a number of battles. Oh, this is a really dark person. Oh wait, no, this is her face. So what's all this up here? Oh, let me get a big image of the started. Alright, I'm not getting anything that's close to the previous one. Alright, so that's what it started look like. So I think they broke up the individual victories under the names of different gods, further complicating the identification of Simirat with Semiramis. So they're thinking that everything that Simirat did would be under the name of Semiramis, when they probably broke it up, gave part to Astarte, then part to Sam, Miram, and then later Tammuz. Presenting Alright, further complicating the identification of Semiramis, and presenting as well an excellent example of propaganda as history. The book, The Two Babylons. Alright, let me see if I can find this book later. Alright, I shouldn't do this. But oh well. PDF. Give me the PDF. Is there a PDF? Yeah, it looks like there's a PDF. Two Babylons of Papal Worship. Okay. Beast 666. Catholic image or pagan Babylonian image. So this is the image of the Holy Mother with the baby. Also an image used by Egyptians and other peoples in that region. Let's see. Alright, this one is worse. It seems like this is all text. I could probably search this one easier, but this one has the actual images. Alright, I'm going to probably have to go and read this later. Download. Bookmark it. Bookmark. And bookmark. Alright. Hyssop was a minister of the Free Church of Scotland who believed that the Catholic Church was, or still is, a satanic cult, and wrote in his book to prove this truth. The book claims that Semiramis was the wife of biblical King Nimrod and mother of Tammuz. So before his name was Ada Nairama, I can't remember the name, but now his name is Tammuz, and links her directly to the Whore of Babylon from the book of Revelation. So in the Bible they keep switching up the names, and in Greek history they keep switching up the names, but the defining qualities of what the peoples did remains true. Alright. The Bible never mentions Semiramis in any connection with Nimrod, and reads Cush begat Nimrod, and makes no mention of Nimrod's mother at all. You see, Nimrod had to have a mother. That's not a problem. It's like just because they don't mention the guy having a mother doesn't mean he didn't have one. Although it should be clear to anyone with even a passing knowledge of the Bible and Mesopotamian history that the work is nothing more than anti-prophet propaganda. It is still cited as an authority on ancient history by certain Protestant church websites. I don't know. I think it's very, very, very accurate because the Bible is only citing doesn't cite the whole. Just the Bible is only using part of the Mesopotamian history. It's not using the whole Mesopotamian history. If you're gonna tell us that guy was born and you don't mention his mother, it's like what? Did they make him out of stone? Did they chisel him? No, he had a mom. Usually, if a guy's made, he doesn't have a mother, and they say so. But this guy clearly had a mom, but they just didn't mention it. On Easter, well, Easter is the worship of another Babylonian goddess of having sex, and is noted by giving eggs and rabbits, called Estara. Easter is not about Jesus Christ. Why do you paint eggs? Why do you paint eggs for Easter? Let's see. Let me type in this one. Goddess Ostera. Goddess Ostera. Who is the goddess Ostera? Ostera of Old English. Ostara, Old High German, is a Germanic goddess who, by the way of the Germanic month bearing the name of West Saxon Estermoff, Old High German, is the namesake of what does the name Ostera mean? Called Isore. Isore is the name of a goddess from that the holiday comes from. So this is where the name of Easter comes from. It's Osere. Today Ostara is the goddess of springtime for the Wiccans to celebrate. So really Easter is celebrating the woman of spring. Alright, what was the power she was known for? Alright, so she was where Babe states that during the Esortum, Easter Romaf, Easter Morph, the equivalent of April, pagans had feasts in April to celebrate spring, but was died out and replaced by the Christian Paschal month. So basically, on the day of quote unquote Jesus Christ's resurrection, they couldn't stop the pagans from celebrating, so they gave them a new god Jesus to celebrate on the day of rebirth. So is that how Jesus gets the powers to be reborn? Because they substituted Jesus for Ostera, who's the goddess of rebirth. And she's the goddess of a whole season. Okay. So the big controversy is that some people think the goddess was an invention of the historian Babe. It's already attested solely by Babe in his 18th century work, The Reckoning of Time, where Babe states that during Istormath. Okay, so who's Babe? Saint Babe the Venerable. Okay, so he would have been a monk responsible for chronicling the pagan rituals as they erased them from the face of the earth. Alright, so here's the etymology of the word. It comes from Proto Indo European hues, means to shine. Modern English also derives from this root, east. So, what does his name mean to shine? Um, Ostara is the dawn goddess, goddess of the rising sun. Um, she's also the daughter of heaven. All right, so so she must have some other qualities. Well, she took me through a whole lot of stuff. These Christian writers on Semiramis. All right, I stopped here at the truth of Easter. The insistence by these Christian writers on Semiramis as the whore of Babylon, an arch enemy of the good of further distances her from connection with an actual Assyrian queen. A distance already noted in the early writings that maintain Semiramis' divinity. Okay, so what's going on here is that other people are going through other histories different from the ones created by the Catholic Church, such as the pagans. And the pagans remember Ostara. The pagans remember that all these holidays that Christians worship on, they're actually pagan holidays because they ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. And so these guys are talking to these pagans about who who who's Semiramis. Tell us about the Assyrians, and they tell them like, oh, we know the Assyrians. The Assyrians came through and they conquered a whole lot of stuff, and this is what they did. But it conflicts with the positive story that the Greeks give because the Greeks are trying to say they're from the Assyrians and from the Canaanites, but they distance themselves from the Canaanites. The stories of Semiramis' sexual appetite and sorry fate for many lovers is very close to the tales about Ishtar, Inanna, and Astarte, and her association with doves and Ascalon definitely identifies her with Astarte. So this is one large tale about one woman or one person who went around conquering stuff and used sex to control others. This suggests to some historians that there is no need to seek any historical figure for the Semiramis legend. To seek any historical prototype for her is as foolish to seek a prototype for Hercules or Romulus. Other historians disagree, claiming we have to see the importance of Queen Semirat, who was an inspiration for the legendary Semiramis. She remained influential until the reign of her son Adad-Nirari, that the official inscriptions have mentioned the two as acting together. Even though Samarat may have never engaged in any of the exploits ascribed to Semiramis, it is possible that the historical Queen Reign is so impressive that it gave birth to legends which grew greater and greater and greater. Okay. Okay, so they're saying that Semiramis is an exaggeration of of small victories made by Samarat. This pattern in Mesopotamian history is already known throughout literary genre as Nauru literature, Nauru literature, which seems to have originated around 2000 BC. In Nauru literature, it really takes a well-known historical figure, reimagines his reimagines him in reimagines him or her in situations which never existed in order to create an engaging story. In other words, it's saying that they exaggerated and lied. I don't think it. I don't think it was a lie. There's too many. It would be too silly today that you have the Pope wearing a fish hat, all because of a fake story. It's like, why would you put something fake on your regalia? Why would you put a symbol that has nothing to do with your people? It's like, if you wasn't a fisherman, why would you put a fisherman's regalia, or even if you had like a mythical story of a legendary fish and you lived in the mountains where there are no fish, why would you put the symbol of a legendary fish? I can understand if you're a fisherman and you came from a long line of people with fish stories, you put a symbol of a fish on your boat or on your house. I wouldn't want to. I would expect to see it up in the mountains. I wouldn't expect to see it on other people's. So if I see a legendary fish symbol on anyone or anyone's property, then they had something to do with legendary fish people. So I don't think it was an exaggeration. A comparable example, though on a small scale, can be seen in the United States history of the 19th century, where actual historical figure of Davy Crockett was transformed by writer James Kirkpatrick C.E. play Lion of the West into Davy Crockett folk hero. Davy Crockett could not perform these kinds of amazing feats that Davy Crockett was capable of, but later was based on the life of the former. In the same way, Miss of Seven Divine Semiramis was probably no. I think that what Davy Crockett was is that he had a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of killing, and it was just easier to say, look, it was that Davy Crockett dude. Had a whole lot of people burning down a whole lot of cities and killing a whole lot of people. That it was that dude Davy Crockett. It's just simpler that way. You don't want to tell 20 different stories of 20 different battles. It's just easier if you put the stories under one name. Alright, went through the Dapper. Let's go back to this book. Alright, so let's see. Can I make this bigger? No. Alright. No. Let me. Alright. That's much better. Alright. Alright. Semiramis have remained the Babylonian Brotherhood. Alright, some pages are omitted from this book preview. Probably not these ones. Alright, Semiramis have remained the key. Who else? These were crossbred blood devices created through genetic manipulation. Alright, then there's like certain breaks, so our page is missing. Semiramis have remained key date. Semiramis probably Tammuz Semiramis or Semiramis and Nimrod have remained key deities of the Babylonian Brotherhood to this day under many different names and symbols. Okay, so they are talking about the same person, but they break up what they did under different names. Sort of like a writer who has different pen names. Nimrod was symbolized as a fish, and Queen Semiramis as a fish and dove. Semiramis is likely to be symbolic of Ninkasharag, the creator of reptile-human crossbreeds. Reptilian people. Nimrod was of the fish god Dagon, who was depicted as half man, half fish. And it's possible that it was symbolic of him being half human. So I'm thinking that Semiramis, that Nimrod was a regular old sea dragon, and that Semiramis was the dragons who can fly. Half skill rep. Nimrod was of the fish god Dagon, was half human, half skilled reptile. Queen Semiramis was also symbolized as a fish because the Babylonians believed fish to be an aphrodisiac. Oh, because she was having all that sex all the time, they thought she was part fish. and it became the symbol of the goddess of love, because fish is so plentiful. Hence the use of the fish in Christian symbolism and architecture, and her role in the Holy Spirit. Semiramis was pictured as a dove holding an olive branch. Semiramis means branch bearer, as in the branch, and Amit bearer. Note also the symbolism of the story of Noah and the great flood, when the dove came back bearing an olive branch. You know, this person went to a whole lot of war, Semiramis, but she's known as being peaceful, as being a symbol of bringing a symbol of peace and not war. The name evolved from an earlier deity. The name Semiramis was evolved from an earlier deity, Semiramis. A fish and dove are the two symbols still widely used in religious ritual. And don't think I don't notice this big star of Mendes with this giant goat and giant pentagram representing Satanism. It's like a fish and dove are two symbols widely used in religious ritual and national ceremony, although most other people involved have no idea of the true meaning. Okay, so this is like Christians saying, "Oh no 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 no, Easter is about Jesus coming back from the dead," when in fact Easter is Jesus replacing Ostera, goddess of sex, spring, having babies, and life in general, and the rebirth of life. It's not necessarily coming back from the dead, but it's about flowers being born in spring, the rebirth of the crops, and has a dove as a symbol, and you find the dove in many of the centers held by British monarchy. Oh, so so that's the tie the British monarchy is saying that they have to the Assyrian Empire. Both organizations are modern fronts for the Babylonian Brotherhood, and the dove symbolizes Queen Semiramis. The dove to them is not a symbol of peace but of death and destruction. That's the total opposite. Because of the reverse of symbolism the Brotherhood employs. Well, you know what, that might be that makes sense, because Semiramis from the very beginning symbolizes herself with a dove, although she's going out there to destroy stuff. So I think that the fish is also is probably also a symbol of destruction for the Babylonian Brotherhood as well. If it is positive to the masses, it is negative to the Brotherhood. This allows their negative symbols to be placed throughout the public area. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that they just put their negative symbols and make them positive to the public, while the rest of their positive symbols are still positive to the public. They don't want the public to know the bad side, so they make the bad stuff look good, and they make their good stuff look good still. No one complains because they have no idea what these symbols, like the dove, really represent. Semiramis was the great queen of heaven, virgin mother of gods, sometimes known as the great mother earth. She was also worshipped under the name Astarte, the woman who made towers, and this could also refer to the Tower of Babylon, which Nimrod is said to have built. The bloodlines of European royalty come from reptile Aryan bloodlines of Babylon, and the crown evolved from the horned headgear worn by Nimrod. The horns symbolized the monarch's authority and later became a metal headband with three horns symbolizing royal power with divine authority. Oh, so that's where this European crown stuff comes from. It's symbolizing you having the horns of a monster. You're wearing fake horns to symbolize the real horns that your ancient parents had. As mentioned earlier, as I have mentioned earlier, the Draco royal hierarchy And the winged albino whites are said to have had horns. I'm sure this is true. I'm sure this is the true origin of the headgear of ancient royalty. Just like how the Pope wears a fish-shaped hat to say, hey, we come from Owens, the fish people. We're dressed up to look like them. We don't look like them, but we're gonna dress up in a costume that looks like them. Queen, the fleur de lis. What is a fleur de lis? Fleur de lis. What is that? I don't know. What is a fleur de lis? Fleur de lis. Style is composed of 3 petals bound together near the base. It is especially known from the former royal arms of France, which appears in gold and blue. So what is this? Oh, I've seen this symbol all over the place, and it's even on some jeans. Is it in voodoo? Yeah, it's in voodoo. So this must be involved in some sort of witchcraft. The original. So this is talking about a royal family bloodline. Alright, Rebels I. The fleur de lis is a symbol of the Babylonian trinity of Nimrod, Queen Semiramis, and Tammuz. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Father, Son, and the Mom. I think that's where the Christianity gets the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amongst other things. So this looks like a trident. So it looks like a trident, except for the edges are turned down. This classic depiction of the devil also has Draco-like horns. So like how this goat has the horns turned down. This is probably what Nimrod's horns were like. It had 2 horns going down like this, and he had 1 horn going up the middle of his head. Nimrod was given the title Baal. Usually in older versions, it's Ba with a little comment at the top right here in between the word, and the last word is El for God, which would have been the Canaanite and I think Assyrian word for God. Now I gotta do a video on El. I know that a lot of people say El is the Hebrew word for God, although I don't think that's so, because many people state that in the Bible there are all these different names for God, which isn't God's name, and only one of these words in the Bible is actually the real name of God. Now, El can't be the name of God because the Canaanites come into the Assyrian Empire, they integrate in, and the Assyrians like teaching them all their Assyrian stuff, and they begin to pick Assyrian words like the Assyrian word for God, and they weren't using the general term. They were worshiping the Assyrian gods. So you can't use the general Assyrian term for God because they're not talking about God in general. They're talking about their gods. And if they was talking about someone else's God, they would use the specific name of that God, or they would just call it an evil spirit. Just like how Christians today, they wouldn't acknowledge Tian of China as a god. They would say, that Tian is a demon. They would say Krishna is a demon. Although some Christians say, some Christians would say that Krishna is just Jesus Christ in Indian form, which is kind of silly. All right, the almost went off track there. All right, the later Nimrod was given the title Baal, the Lord. Oh, is that why in the Bible it's always the Lord? Are they really referring to Baal, to Baal? I'm sorry, it's not written Baal, it's written Baal. He was given the title Baal. That's what they wrote here in this book. But in other older books, it's Ba-El. And the late Semiramis was ball was Balti, my lady. The Latin term for my lady is mia dominia, which in its corrupted Italian form became Madonna. Oh, remember the Super Bowl? Super Bowl. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. See, hey, isn't this the time Madonna dressed up as a star day? Alright, Madonna, Super Bowl halftime show. I'm not even sure if I'll get a strike for that. It Madonna's Super Bowl halftime show is, I'll just put satanic. Madonna's Super Bowl show, Satanico. See, 3 minutes. Madonna's Super Bowl show is alright, let me go back up here. Fair use. Remember, fair use. I'm calling it fair use.
Y como están amigos YouTube. Un saludo. Se llamaba Isis. Veamos la entrada. Rana de la diosa pagana de egipcios de
Alright, this person is giving it in Spanish. Alright, this one is 4 minutes. Nope, nothing shorter.
Moving on to our next story. Did Madonna put on the greatest show on earth? Asks the Daily Mail. She declared she had to put on the ratings of Bruce Springsteen's used by Satanists to reckon people during Super Bowl halftime show are being told to worship. So who's Baphomet? Baphomet is an idol used by Satanists to represent the devil. Or as Satanist Aleister Crowley once himself described it, quote, "This serpent, Satan, he is the devil of the book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet."
What most people don't know is that when the Europeans started to reimagine the Greek gods and whatnot, and Egyptian gods, this Baphomet is to be quote unquote Isis, who is another version who was transferred from, you guessed it, Semiramis, but I gotta prove that. Baphomet Isis, who was Baphomet. Alright, this will have to be continued later.